So today we're going to talk about your first steps to success. We all have big dreams and goals. We can see the finish line. We have this beautiful picture in our head of what life can be, what life should be, what we want life to be like. But sometimes we can't even get started. We get stuck and we have a hard time moving forward and we come up with all sorts of excuses. Some are legitimate, some are not. It's not the right time, you're not quite ready, you haven't got the extra money, whatever it happens to be. And there's a million reasons not to do it, but we're going to help you do it anyway. We're going to help you get it going. Usually, the lives each week that I come here and do are very actionable. They have lots of information or steps that you can take to grow your business, improve your mindset or your time management or whatever it is that we're talking about that week. This week's a little different. I want to motivate you to take action, whether you have a business idea that you've been sitting on, whether you have been putting off taking your side hustle full time, whatever it is in your life or business that you can't seem to get started on and maybe just seems too big to tackle and like it'll never happen. And I want to tell you a story that hopefully motivates you. And then I will still give you your one step action step for this week and your tools and everything to help you move along as well. So you know what that thing is for you that you're not doing, despite the fact that you really, really want to do it. You know it would be amazing, but for a variety of reasons, some valid, some are BS, you are waiting. You're waiting for the right time, for the financing, for whatever it is. So here's the key. Action creates momentum. Any action, even the tiniest action, starts the ball rolling and it gets you moving towards your goals. And in my early 20s, my biggest goal, my huge goal, my big dream was to travel the world. I bought books on how to work your way around the globe. I watched Rick Steves' Europe Through the Back Door. I think it's actually still on now, but it was current at the time. I devoured travel books and magazines, and then I planned and replanned all the routes I was going to take. I was fresh out of college. I didn't have any money. So I knew however I was going to travel, I was going to have to earn money along the way. I even bought a book from an ad in a newspaper for $59, which was a lot of money for me at the time. It promised to land me a job on cruise ships, guaranteed to get a job on cruise ships. And I read it cover to cover, but I didn't apply for a single cruise ship job, not one, because I was waiting. I was waiting to have more money in my pocket. I was waiting to be in a relationship so we could go together. I was waiting till I was thinner. Mostly I was waiting till I was thinner, which is a good thing I didn't wait forever because I'd still be waiting. And I waited and I waited and I worked 4 jobs and I saved and I dieted and I waited some more. I waited for 6 years. And then I was cleaning off my bookshelf and I saw that book that I had spent $59 on and never actually used to apply for any cruise ship jobs. And I looked back at the last 6 years, lost time really, where I accomplished literally nothing while I was holding my breath and I was waiting for perfection, whatever that perfection was. And I realized that waiting wasn't going to make it happen. Doing it was going to make it happen. And I didn't need to be wealthier. I didn't need to be thinner or better to go after my dream. I just needed to take some action, any action. So I pulled the book off the shelf and I polished up my resume and I started applying. And I was on fire. I was completely unstoppable. I applied for every job I was remotely qualified for with every cruise line that could possibly be hiring. And it's worth noting that at this point, I had never been on a cruise ship in my life. So I had very little information on the jobs that I was actually applying for. And looking back, it's quite funny because I would have been very poorly suited for about 80% of the jobs I applied for, like a deckhand and that sort of thing. But the actual job at the time was irrelevant. I was just laser focused on working on a ship and finally seeing the world. And I was going to do whatever it took to make it happen. So a few weeks and dozens of applications later, I got a phone call back from Crystal Cruises for an interview. And unfortunately, this was pre Zoom being the norm. A phone interview wasn't going to be enough. They needed to see me in person, and they were in Los Angeles, and I was in Canada. I had no money, well, very little money, but I managed to scrape together enough for a flight and a hotel for a few nights. And I talked my best friend into making the trip with me. Two small town prairie girls. We had no idea what we were in for, but we were up for an adventure. So we flew into LA. We landed around midnight. This was pre-hotels.com. So we had just chosen a chain that we were familiar with, Super 8 in Hollywood, which we thought was going to be glamorous. If you've been to Hollywood before, you're laughing right now because Hollywood is not necessarily glamorous, even 25 years ago. We walked into the hotel, it was bulletproof glass, it was dark, it was scary, it was that's a whole other adventure that would be an entirely different story. But the next day we went and I had my job interview with Crystal Cruises, and I had actually gotten a second interview with Princess Cruises because I knew I was going to be in LA. I knew they were based in LA, and I thought, well, I'm not going to get to do this again. So let's make the most of it. So I had relentlessly called them and managed to get an interview for the dates that I was going to be in town. This was totally out of character for me. I'm a big old introvert. I always have been. I have to leave parties when they get too peoply. I spend more time than anyone should creating and acting out made up scenarios in my head. So this was all way out of my comfort zone. But you know what? Action turned into more action. And both of those interviews turned into job offers. And I accepted the position working in the gift shops on board a Princess cruise ship a few days after that. And my dream to travel the world was about to be realized. In less than a month, I was landing in Italy on an Easter Sunday to join my first ship for a 6-month contract at sea. That contract, which was the first of dozens over the next 10 years, took me from Egypt to Odessa, Morocco, Venice, all the way around Europe, the British Isles, Iceland, Greenland. It was the most incredible 6 months of my life to that point. That small decision at the beginning of the story to take action led to, a 10-year career on cruise ships as a speaker, a TV presenter, traveling the world, earning my first $1 million, meeting and losing the love of my life, buying my first home, and ultimately making me into an entrepreneur. And it all happened because I stopped waiting until I had it all figured out. I still don't have it all figured out. Who has it all figured out, right? You'll never have it all figured out. But I still look back at that time in my 20s as lost years, completely wasted time. So I repeatedly remind myself that there's no more waiting. Nothing needs to be perfect. I don't need to be perfect to go, get on with the doing and go after my dreams. So here's my question for you. What are you waiting for? And more importantly, what time are you losing while you wait? What beautiful, messy, incredible things are you missing because you aren't taking the leap and getting on with the doing? Because your dreams are ready for you if you're ready for them. So it's time to take a deep breath and start the doing. No matter how small that first step is, that's the key, is to take that step. So your one step for this week's one step empire, because we give you a step every single week, is to take a step, any step that you've been putting off that moves you one step closer to your dreams and your goals, one step closer to that thing that you've been putting off because it wasn't the right time, you weren't ready, you didn't have the financing, whatever it is. And then after you take that one step this week, I want you to put the next step on your calendar for next week. And I think you're going to find that you're going to start your own little snowball of action, and you'll probably accelerate and do more than one step each week. But even if you don't do any more than that one step each week, by the end of the year, you are going to have accomplished so much, you're not going to believe it. And if you need something to help you get started, just pop over to the site. If you go to rasheedcorporated.com, we have all sorts of free downloads there. And you can download a simple marketing plan template. You can download a worksheet to get you dialed into your ideal buyer. That could be your first step. There's even a free vision board kit, and you're welcome to go and download it. It'll get you started on setting your intention. So take what you need and get yourself started with that tiny little step.